Vishnu-padaya, Krishna-prastaya bhutale, Bhakti-vedanta, Swamiti Namine, Namah Vishnu-padaya, Krishna-prastaya bhutale, Bhakti-vedanta, Swamiti Namine, Uravane Vishesha Punyavadi Vastyachadishata Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracha Punyavadi Vastyachadishata Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Advaita Gadadha Srivastava Gaurabhakta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadha Srivastava Gaurabhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Srivastava Gaurabhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Srivastava Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jana Vallabha Exodanandana Bhajajanna Ranga Bhajajanna Exodanandana Bhajajanna Oh Tira Tira Kunja Vihari, Gopi Janavallabha, Go Premanandi, Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parirajacharya, Ashtataya Sadashri Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Vedanta Kota Vaishnavinda ki, Namacharya Shlahridas Thakur ki, Prem Se Koho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Gita, Shri Radha Krishna Gopti Gopinath, Shamakunda Radha Ki Govardhana Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki, Ganga Maya Ki, Jamuna Maya Ki, Tulasi Deva Ki, Bhakti Deva Ki, Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki, Lord Chaitanya Sarinam Sankirtan Ki, Prihat Madanga Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Shri Gaur Nitai Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaura Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees. Grantaraj Shriman Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Vitale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pacharni Nirvasesha Sanyavadi Pastacharya Shataya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 You want to go take your breakfast? Do you? It's probably breakfast time. Hare Krishna. So welcome everybody today on the second day, in a sense, of our Vaishnav New Year. Vaishnav calendar starts the day after Gopurnim, more or less, or some say on the day of Gopurnim. But the new month starts the day after Gopurnim. Whatever it is, for devotees, we try to start our, more or less we could say every moment we're trying to restart our year, our day, our, let's say, drive for Krishna consciousness. It never ends, ever increasing. even on the spiritual realm. It's not the one reaches a plateau. When we see ourselves reaching a plateau, then we should be a little careful. Sometimes that may happen. Sometimes we may see ourselves slipping a little bit. It's a wise thing to do to take shelter and to take help when we see symptoms of, let's say, concern. Sometimes they're so imperceptible almost. They creep up slowly. Adjustments. Maya is very clever to almost justify the situation by various clever arguments, sometimes even shastric, or the association we hold also supports our whatever difficulties. We may not even recognize them as such. Sometimes they evolve into the development of doubts or the development of attachments to material objects and so on, clouding our consciousness to not even be able to see that we're not going in the right direction, at least not for spiritual life. So the importance of hearing Shastra, of hearing scripture from the right source, hearing, not trying to, let's say, extract from the scriptures justifications for our own perception of the world, but to hear submissively. This is, in one sense, the essence of the process of devotional service, to hear submissively, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Holy Name, the Srimad Bhagavatam, or any bona fide Vedic literature, Shastra. To hear submissively, which means with attention. Not that we're trying to put some kind of conception upon what we're hearing. My own perspective of this statement. Of course, we have to understand our need to use our intelligence to practically apply the statements in our lives. How does this statement relate to me? Somebody was saying to me, I think day before yesterday, I think on Gopurnima, I can't remember, or yesterday, whichever it was. The very common thing is that we all can easily understand how our karmic conditioning interferes, or let's say, disturbance in our surrendering process, attachments to various things, various karmic, ongoing and past effects are there, which may make progress somewhat challenging. But even deeper one is the knowledge, not just our knowledge of mundane knowledge, which can itself also be described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur as a poison shaft in my heart, attachment, pride to mundane knowledge of various kinds, even in the name of, our upbringing, our whatever, even material shastras, we could say, the various shastras of the world today are based primarily on material conceptions, and even bringing them in as a comparison, etc., to the Srimad Bhagavatam, it can be another diversion. But even more than that, when we become proud of our analysis of Shastra, and maybe a different opinion. Someone's telling me about one particular devotee who is here in France, who has gone on a different track of Shastra. Now, there's not anything wrong necessarily from what they're doing. Siddhanta is based on the same root. It's just a different branch of the Chaitanya tree. But the point is, we judge a tree by its fruits. It's not just about justification or learning or knowing countless shastric references or being convinced that I've got it right. Maybe they're also close, but that's not the whole point. The point of everything is to awaken our bhakti, to awaken our loving devotion to Krishna, and that would be manifested in our behavior. You can't say I love Krishna and behave in a, let's say, an averse manner towards Krishna's energy, be it what it may. What to speak of Krishna's devotees? It's symptomatic. If one is let's say, offensive towards devotees, one is offensive towards Krishna. One can't say I love Krishna, but I don't love something here and there. It doesn't work. We may say we don't love anything which is opposed to Krishna. That's like another thing. Everything is Krishna's energy. Everything belongs to Krishna, no matter who or what it is. And if the heart becomes hard, even though we may have a lot of Shastric knowledge, we may have a position, we may be very, convinced I've got it right. But unless there's actually softening of the heart, the behavior, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said when he was discussing the life of Madhavendra Puri, but not at that time the life, but the glories of Madhavendra Puri, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Mathura on his way to Vrindavan. He stopped and he met one Sanodiya Brahmana. Sanodiya Brahmanas are not considered to be high-class Brahmins. They're the priests of the Vaishyas primarily. And they're looked down upon by high-class Saraswatis or Tirthas or whatever they are. So he wasn't considered a high-class Brahmin. High-class Brahmins would never eat, at least especially the food cooked by, let's say, a Sanodiya Brahmin. They would not eat it. This is degrading, this mundane perception. Huh? But that's how it was. So Lord Chaitanya met this Sanodiya Brahmana in Mathura. And the Sanodiya Brahmana was in such ecstasy when he saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he practically fainted in ecstasy. Seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then discussing with him, asked, "You are so, what is causing you? You're so ecstatic. Who are you?" And so he inquired from him. And he said, I'm the most fortunate person. I had the opportunity to serve Madhavendra Puri. He came to my home. The most elevated sannyasi had come to his home and had taken prasadam in his home. And he was basically took shelter of Madhavendra Puri. Lord Chaitanya said, now I can understand why you were so ecstatic. Anyone who has the association of Madhavendra Puri, it's just a moment's association with Madhavendra Puri, when one naturally feel ecstatic love of God. He's a walking, you could say, reservoir of love of God. So Lord Chaitanya could understand why this Brahmin was so ecstatic on seeing him. And he then gave a very famous verse, like, I don't know the Sanskrit or whatever, but it says, religious principles are established by the behavior of a devotee. And the behavior of Madhavendra Puri is the essence of all religion. We heard in the verse just before the one we're going to read in a minute from Bhagavatam, how Savai Pungso Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Hokshaje. Topmost religion, a very famous verse, is that which is a devotional service. The supreme dharma, the supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Unmotivated, uninterrupted. That service which helps to evoke a loving devotional service to Krishna. That activity, that environment, that society, that process, that association, this is considered supreme. So to associate with somebody who is actually a pure devotee of the Lord, this is the highest, you could say, emblem of pure devotional service. This is the highest. It's the essence of all religion, essence of all religious principles, is this opportunity. And even with Madhavendra Puri also, Nityananda Prabhu, when he met Madhavendra Puri, was also, and others also, the perfection of my sannyas is now that I've seen you. To see such a pure devotee is very, very akshnopalam prajukata sangam. Very, very rare to get the opportunity, akshno, to see a pure devotee of the Lord, or what to speak of touch, or hear from, serves a pure devotee of the Lord. Because such a great souls are very, very, very rare. Very rare. But it's the essence of all religion. Now, when they come, when they manifest in this world, they may be here, but they don't manifest necessarily. When they manifest their presence and make it available to a common person, this is extremely rare. Extremely rare. They bring this process of awakening love of Godhead, the essence of devotional service, to awaken a love of Godhead. They bring the process. They teach by their own example, by their behavior, by their teachings, the life of pure devotional service and the means to, let's say, develop towards that level of consciousness. And they leave that method behind when they unmanifest their pastimes and they appear no more to our vision. But they leave the boat, it's described how it's like a boat, to ferry us across the ocean of illusion. They leave that boat behind in the form of maybe their followers' movement, if they formed one, their teachings in the form of shastras, their legacy in terms of their behavior and their personal interaction with the world around us, etc. They leave that behind so we can take shelter of them. So Srila Prabhupada has also left these transcendental literatures for the world's benefit. We simply have to take shelter in that association. Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, you read my books. All my ecstasies are in my books, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's how we can get the association of Prabhupada. This is how, if we hear submissively, we can be protected from the waves of illusion. The waves of illusion, like a tsunami, practically speaking, can swallow us up. Swallow us up like a big surf wave. 100 feet tall, they have surf waves in Portugal. Almost scary just to think about it. One of those who crash. I was trying to bathe in the ocean. I couldn't even bathe. Couldn't even get in. I mean, after about 1 meter inside the water, I was being swashed all over the place. And that was like on the shore. Couldn't go any further. How on earth people can go out there, I do not know. Incredible. But this is the material world, and most people are just swallowed in the waves of illusion, Maya's traps. So many traps are there, easily to get caught. To be very careful, and therefore we take shelter. The only shelter we have from the onslaught of Maya is the lotus feet of the Lord, which is the opportunity to take shelter of those lotus feet of the Lord is given by the pure devotees. We have to pray, we have to take shelter of those pure devotees of the Lord and try to keep ourselves tucked safely under their lotus feet. We have no fear. Safely embracing their instructions, trying our best to apply them in our lives. We have no hope otherwise, other than the mercy of Krishna to protect us. So we're going to read one verse now from Srimad Bhagavatam. I think Rasikananda Prabhu might remember, or someone may remember. I think that last week we did 9. Is that correct? Not last week, maybe the week before. I don't know when it was, but text number 9. Is that correct, Rasika? Would we be doing number 10 today? I think we're on 10 today. It's good. Thank you, Rasika. Please keep a track record of where we're going and make it easy for all of us, which it looks like we're doing anyway. Thank you so much. This text number 10 of the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, Divinity and Divine Service. It's another one famous verse. Kamasya nendriya pritir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tadvajignasa nartoyas cheha karma bihi. We can chant all together one more time, all together. Kamasya nendriya pritir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nartoyasya karma bihi. It's a nice verse if you want to. Some of us may already know it. It's one of those many verses which we should learn. Many. It's certainly one of them. Kamasya, of desires, no, not. The word kama, I think most of us know that word, lust. Kamasya, of desires, is referring to material desires, of course. No, not. Indriya, and again, famous verse, senses. Pritihi, satisfaction, famous word also. Labhaha, labhaha, gain, similar to loba, greed. Gain, labhaha. Jiveta, self-preservation for the soul, jiva. Yavata, so much so. Jivasya, of the living being. Tattva, the absolute truth. Jigyasa inquires a famous verse, Om Tato Brahma Jignasa. Therefore, one should inquire into the nature of the absolute truth. Jivasya Tattva Jignasa. Na, not. Artaha, end. Fruit, like the fruit of something, goal of something. Yak Jaiha, whatsoever else. Karma bihi, by occupational activities. It's a very nice translation by Srila Prabhupada. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Repeat. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. Even we may say, there are different opinions about that in terms of what that means, sense gratification. Even now we're faced with the situation in Ukraine, where there is, whatever the reasons are, there appears to be a difference of opinion about the situation. The clash is there, and whatever the fight is taking place, that's for sure. So Prabhupada said, same in the Second World War, any war, both parties are trying to convince everyone around them that they're right to do what they're doing. And Prabhupada says, in the Second World War, Mr. Hitler, in this case, thought his form of sense gratification was the best. And Mr. Churchill thought, no, my form of sense gratification is the best. And over different types of sense gratification, they're willing to wipe out whole nations. But it's all nothing but sense gratification, beginning, middle, and end. And this is the cause of all problem. Even in devotional service, we sometimes apply this principle. I'm here to enjoy myself. And if someone gets into the way that I think it should be, they're my enemy. I don't like them. We don't realize what we're here for sometimes. We forget. There was a very famous song. Not you probably never heard of it. I think it was Frank Sinatra, and I don't know when, long time back. I did it my way. I mean, him or Roy Orbison or one of these characters. I did it my way. And people think it's very nice. I did it my way. My way or the highway. And die way. You know, it's like you end up dying and go flying and whatever. You just lost. I mean, people are just lost. What is my way? My way. People are sometimes proud of my way. I did it. These are the traps of illusion. This is what keeps us bound up in Mitunya Agara, the shackles of birth and death, the shackles of sex life. Bound up. We don't perhaps think of it much. Maybe we're just trying to engage ourselves in devotional service, which is great. I can say good fortune. But at the same time, sometimes we do impose our own, say, conceptions, perceptions of the world onto devotional service. Who am I? And, what about my rights or me or whatever it is? You can expect that's going to be there in the impure stage, but it's not the goal. It's not the goal. It's not the art of devotional service. It's not the goal of devotional service. As this verse clearly points out, it is not the goal of devotional service. But unfortunately, people are being taught this. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, even philanthropy and altruism, where people are thinking of the welfare of others physically, is absolute sense gratification. He's only thinking of how to facilitate the sense gratification of another person. Nothing more than that. That's all it is. Whether it's a hospital, we're not saying these things shouldn't be there. They have to be there. But it should be understood they're only for that purpose of facilitating sense gratification. Political adjustments, charity, welfare work, everything is simply to try to improve the sense gratification. Full stop. Even salvation is 100% sense gratification. I want salvation. I want liberation. It's total sense gratification. The very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant in the path of Gyan. I want to know. I want to know. Now, all of this can be connected with devotional service, but set aside from devotional service, it is sense gratification. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, which is called Transcendental Knowledge Divya Gyan, Krishna explains to Arjuna various paths that people may pursue in order to come to realization or to come achieve their goals in life. Different types of renunciation, studies, and tapasyas, all sorts of things which people may undergo in order for various reasons, maybe some connection there to spiritual pursuit. But Prabhupada says if these purposes, if all these endeavors do not culminate in surrender to the personality of Godhead, they're merely material sense gratification. The purposes of all of the activities, all of the processes of yoga, all of the various adjustments in society are meant to please the senses of Lord Hari. They're meant to surrender, to bring us to the point of surrender to Krishna, as we'll see. Maybe we've already seen, I can't remember. Maybe previous verses it was discussed. The purpose is to please Lord Hari, is not to gain fame and name in this world. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. To free us from this aspiration for recognition, name and fame and so on. But very hard to get over that, say, obstacle on the journey. So maybe a little attached to this subject matter. The voters, no, we missed something. Where are we? In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification, which we mentioned just now. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. Isn't it only so common? What a reality. We will reduce the taxes. We will make this more available. We will do this. You won't have to work so hard, or whatever it is. Imagine if you were standing for election and your manifesto was, we will no longer allow the slaughter of animals. We will no longer allow breweries and public places which are existing for selling liquor and other intoxications. We will no longer, what's the other, gambling houses, all will be closed. I don't think a person will get many votes. Not many. Maybe some of the devils would vote for them. Maybe, hopefully. Where will you find such a personality who's able, like Maharaj Parikshit, to stand up and really represent, the welfare of others? Let's just get rid of this guy quick. He's ruining everyone's lives. People are in such gross ignorance, I guess. I mean, even Prabhupada said when he arrived in America, he said, as soon as I say to the people, you have to give up meat eating, give up illicit sex, give up gambling, give up intoxication. They'll tell me, get out of here, go back home. Prabhupada said that. Imagine if he's, even nowadays, things like contraception and abortion are just like, so many things going on in society which are being accepted as perfectly normal. No, even religiously speaking, to speak of the most severe ones. But abortion, this is the most severe, it's probably one of the most severe ones. Now we know there are so many anomalies in this age of Kali. We know there are so many different abnormal situations. And for many of the young girls, it's a bewildering situation. They're not at fault. Society's at fault. They're just victims of this licentious society, you could say. They don't know what to do. They're in trouble because they've been misdealt with. And in one sense, it's poor girls. They don't know what to do, being exploited. But in reality, these type of activities like abortion are the most sinful thing you could ever conceive of, practically speaking. Murder of children in the womb, basically. It's unheard of. I mean, I guess it's already been going on, but now it's institutionally, legally, it's being brought in by every single so-called country in the world practically is approving of it. And there are so many other things. How on earth can we, it's a miracle the world is not just smoke. It's a miracle. The sinful activities that are going on this planet are inconceivable practically. It's a miracle. It's not all up in smoke. We say, why is this happening to us? My God, what do I remember? Was it probably, I think probably. Somebody said, why, what have I done to deserve this? I'm a good person. Why am I suffering? And I don't know if it probably, someone said, what have you not done? What is it you haven't done to deserve this? It's a miracle the world's still not, somehow or another, there's still some remnant of some sort of sanity of some kind, at least some facility to facilitate it. It's not just blown up entirely. Karma is almost like it's being held back. As Parikshit Maharaj held back the karma of Kali Yuga, or not the karma, but the action, the effect of Kali Yuga by his purity, Srila Prabhupada, and the devotees of the Lord by their Sankirtana Yajna. But sometimes we're so wrapped in our own blooming issues. Like, we have nothing else on our mind but me, and me again. It's sometimes like that. There's that sacrifice that Prabhupada gave, sacrificed everything for the sake of the world, to try to bring about a revolution in society. A revolution doesn't mean walking down the street with placards, down with so-and-so, no war, this thing, that thing. We want our rights, we want exit, Brexit, this thing, that thing. That's just another form of sense gratification. The real revolution is when we turn around and realize I exist, we exist, only solely and wholly to bring pleasure to Krishna. Samsiddhir Hari Toshan. Quite a transformation. And the leaders of society are supposed to provide, it's called Krishnendriya, they're supposed to provide environmental facilities to help that to at least begin. But instead, they provide environmental sense to sin. Instead of begin our spiritual life, they arrange things for us to sin, to go the opposite direction. Cover the living entity. Try to stop any introduction of spirituality at all costs in society if we can. Why? Because it will undermine. It means I will no longer be able to control, to enjoy this position that we have. No longer to think that I am God, the enjoyer. We're getting a bit heavy here, but it's with compassion Prabhupada wanted this revolution. As Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started a revolution of consciousness, it wasn't to kill people, it was to save. It was to bring happiness in people's lives, freedom from misery, freedom from anxiety, birth, death, disease, and old age. Imagine if that was your manifesto. I promise that if you elect me, I will free you from birth, death, disease, and old age. Nobody will believe you. But if you were, you'd be very popular after some time. We just have to have faith in this process of devotional service. Deep faith, surrender ourselves, surrender our hearts at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, and ultimately Krishna. Then Krishna can do anything through such a surrendered soul to transform the world. The people will start to respect each other as servants of Krishna. They start to show loving relationships may start to really develop, not based on sense gratification, but based upon pleasing Krishna. What a world, Vaikuntha, Prabhupada said. Creating Vaikuntha, spiritual man. In the spiritual world, there is no envy. We will carry on. The voters adore. Where are we? Are we there? Is that where we are? Okay. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense satisfaction, they dethrone the leaders. You don't have to comment on this. It's just right in front of our nose all the time. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. I'm kind of laughing. We shouldn't be. We should be very sad and this is such a pitiful situation. Pit, I fall. Interesting word, pitiful. We fall into a pit. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation want to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for their own sense gratification. What do you mean? Moksha, surely that's the highest dharma. Huh? Dharma, kama, artha, moksha, liberation. But what the heck does that do for anyone except for himself? Now I'm free. Me. I have become one with the absolute. I am the center. It's the highest form of sense gratification in other than pure devotional service. Spiritual suicide, because they're denying their actual spiritual constitution. And those who teach that process are the greatest, sometimes they're the greatest offenders, even worse than those who indulge people in mundane sense gratification, because they're really covering people, really covering this opportunity to render devotional service to Krishna. Pride at its epitome. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required. Oh, I missed something. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation, not for sense gratification. Yes, we have to keep body, mind, and soul together, whatever is needed for that purpose, but not more than required. Most people think we need these things more and more and more. The problem of life is we don't have enough sense gratification. That's the problem. If we only had more, that person over there has got more sense gratification than us. Therefore, we have to attack them. We have to try to, get the same gratification as they've got or more. This is the disease of modern education, the disease of modern society. Training people to try to get more sense gratification, or trying to convince them about this method, they will get it. And at one time when one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers was preaching in England, and he met Lord Zetland, who comes up a few times actually, he must be a special person in our history of Krishna consciousness history. But Lord Zetland had some kind of affinity, indeed he did. He assisted the devotees in various ways when they came in the 30s to England. He had affection, but he wasn't really himself able to apply it much. So he asked one of the Prabhupada's godbrothers, can you make me a Brahmin? Can you also make me a Brahmana? Prabhupada said, yes, we can do that. He said, well, what do I have? What do you have? What is it? How do I do it? What do I have to do? They said, first, you have to give up meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. His one word response was impossible. Impossible. He couldn't think of living without, liquor or cigarettes. I don't know what he was doing, eating meat or whatever. Illicit sex, gambling or whatever, sports. Couldn't think of living without it. It's like death. And we meet many people on the street and we don't talk about that very often, but on occasion you meet somebody who's a little bit more inquisitive. And sometimes they do say, you're asking me to not eat meat and not have illicit sex and no intox. I'd rather die, sometimes they say. That means there's no life left. They can't perceive or can rather conceive of happiness outside of this circle. It's like, how is it possible that just by chanting Hare Krishna and living a simple life, you can be more happy? How is it possible? Not difficult. If one's in contact with fire, you're going to feel the heat. If you're in contact with Krishna, who is the reservoir of pleasure, you can experience a reservoir of happiness. Whereas the happiness you get from temporary sense gratification is like a little drop of water in a desert. It's nothing. It dries up after no time. Then you're going to look for another one and another one. It might be sweet for a few seconds, but death is on our doorstep. Any moment, time sweeps it away, death takes it away. Others frustrated. Our karma doesn't allow it. But we're so determined, we're so puffed up. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get sense gratification. I'm going to get recognition. I'm going to make it. I'm going to reach the top. We're such fools because we're educated. This is in our in our, you could say, our samskars when we're born are already there, but we're accepting this, whole system of education and so many other things is all in all. It's like it's worshipable. It's like the greatest thing. We're so fortunate. In the past, they were so unfortunate. They didn't have this education. They didn't have all these things that we have now. What would we do without a mobile phone? Horrible. It's unthinkable. What would I do without all these modern machines? How could people live? They were just cavemen. They lived 5 minutes only, a few years. And they were just animalistic, eating each other. They didn't know anything. This is what we're told by the false education system. They were far more advanced than we are now, unendingly more advanced. They were always, animalistic people. But society, real human society was so much more advanced. They didn't waste their time in all this disturbing stuff that we're interested in. Now we have to learn the art of utilizing this in Krishna's service in order to transform our consciousness. We can't just get rid of it. We have nothing else in replacement. Learning Nibbana Krishna Sambandhe learning how to use education for the pleasure of Krishna, not for sense gratification. How to utilize our wealth, how to utilize our talents, etc., for the service of Krishna. It's a joyful process, even though we're in contact with so many, you could say, anomalies, unnecessary things, an artist. But when we connect them with Krishna, even that can become very joyful. Driving a car, if it's for Krishna, you don't need to, but it can also be devotional service. Working on the computer can be devotional service. It doesn't have to be sense gratification. Politics can be for devotional service. It doesn't have to be sense gratification. Everything can be channeled in relation with Krishna. That's the art of bhakti. But unfortunately, the modern, generally speaking at least, world that we live in that is not the agenda. It's quite the opposite. It's for ourselves. Selfishness. Envy, greed, selfishness, lust, anger, illusion, madness. More or less everybody is under these controls. And they're described by Prahlad Maharaj, these are our enemies, they're not our friends. And the art of making your friends somehow to harness them in the service of Krishna. Utilize them in the service as best we can. We finish the purport. Because the body is made of senses which also require a certain amount of satisfaction. There are regulative directions for satisfaction of the senses. So there's the process regulating the situation. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage with a combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. That's one of the hardest ones, we could say. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning. But foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. We've already touched on that with contraception and so on. Now, you won't believe this, but I was in Jhansi. Now, Jhansi is a city in India. In Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada was in Jhansi in the early 50s. He was preaching in this city in India, and he wanted to start his movement there. It was called the League of Devotees. You may have seen, if you read the Prabhupada Leelamrita, you might remember this. There's a wall with League of Devotees written on it. Prabhupada was, this was a memorial property, and there was a temple there called the Radha Memorial, or a building there. That may not have been a temple. There's a building called the Radha Memorial. And Prabhupada was given the usage of these properties by a certain person, I won't mention their name, had given them the use of these buildings for the service of establishing a league of devotees there. And then after some time, a particular lady who was very influential approached the manager of these properties and said she wanted to use it for another purpose. Women's upliftment movement or something. She wanted to use it for some other purpose. And she actually was a very powerful personality. and was able to convince the owner that that was by actually almost forcing the owner, because the owner had some cinema or something. She would said she wouldn't renew his permission to operate unless he gave over. So the man was obligated, and Prabhupada had to leave those buildings, and it was given to this lady and her women's upliftment movement. And I visited that place, and I also visited the family of that property, etc. And I spoke to maybe the daughter of the person who was owning it at that time. And I said, so what are you doing now? We said, well, we're still using what she said, for the purpose of the upliftment. What does that mean, women's upliftment? She said, we go all around the neighborhood of Jhansi teaching family planning. That's what their upliftment for the ladies is, teaching them how to use contraceptives. And when she said that, she realized what she said. She blushed. She realized, oh my God, it's quite the opposite to knowing what the real philosophy is. But this is what's going on in the name of upliftment of society. Where are we, Rasika? Combinations. In the absence of voluntary restraint, we've read that, isn't it? Maybe. Foolish voluntary restraint. There is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family. We read that. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. That alone will make one happy, because he will be less. Engagement in sense gratification is the cause of their suffering, quite the opposite to the philosophy of modern day. It causes unending suffering, karmic reactions. Okay, well, we finished the verse. Are there any questions? Quite a, you could say, rather a heavy talk today. I apologize. I didn't, certainly with the intention of trying to see what is for the benefit of all of us, and not just condemning what's going on. That's easy to do. Even ignorant persons will do that also. I'm one of them. But there's a positive side. Prabhupada has given the positive solution. It's just criticize the situation. The problem, one of the problems of modern day is we don't know what alternative is there. There's not really any alternative. The alternative is Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And on a social level, of course, it's the Varnashram system. It'll take a little time before that starts to manifest in a very significant way, if at all. At least the Sankirtan movement is there. This is the alternative. Transformation of our consciousness. So any questions, please? Well, let's see. You can definitely ask, but let's see if there's anyone coming up on the chat. But we have a question here in New Mayapur from our audience here, which comprises myself and one other devotee. So the question comes from that one other devotee, of course. Yes, Rupa. It's Rupa Raghunath, if you know, alias Rufat, who was living a long time. And he's, anyway, I won't mention it. He's been staying in a Brahmacharya ashram for several years. Okay, fire away.
Thank you for the class. You were nicely described in the beginning how the consciousness can be conditioned by the Shastric knowledge, and the pride is there. What is the remedy if you're relying so much on the intelligence and you cannot take yourself out of this platform? You're still
I'll repeat the question. Is that the question?
Yeah.
What is the remedy? For what? The remedy is, in the beginning, we were talking a little bit about even knowledge, even Shastric knowledge, can, let's say, enhance or can create a form of pride which may impede our actual devotion or our love of Krishna. Can do, it doesn't have to. So what is the remedy, or the, let's say, to protect us from that happening? Either way, what is the remedy? Well, we could apply this to many things, but this is a very specific and a very, say, strong challenge. This attachment, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about it many times. We see in the case, for instance, of Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, when he approached for initiation Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Bhakti Siddhanta at that time was a very learned scholar, extremely learned, shastrically and even materially learned, and very qualified personality. When he approached Gaurkishore Das Babaji, who was very, you could say, resisting the approach as far as giving initiation, he wasn't going to give it. He was very hesitant in this regards. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj became so desperate that he wanted to give up his own life. He said, to hell with my education, if it doesn't allow me to take the shelter of your Lord's feet. So if one realizes the danger, is the first thing. If we don't realize it, what can you say? That's one thing. But if we do recognize the risk involved, or we do recognize I am getting proud by this, then what will happen is that there'll be a feeling in the heart of we say kind of repentant, called tapa, austerity, burning fever, and the feeling in the heart, what to do about this, and one will appeal for help. But the practical aspect of this is that, in many ways, is that one will be willing to render any type of service to overcome it, menial service. When one great scholar came to see Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj in one of the Gaudiya Maths, he was the vice chancellor of the Sanskrit department of Varanasi University, which is the main Sanskrit, one of the main, if not the main Sanskrit college in India. He was a big man, famous man. And he had some devotional tendencies, of course. That, by the way, that wing is named after Rupa Goswami. So he came to see Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, a very, very learned scholar, very learned. But there was something in Shastra that he didn't capture. And he knew, as I say, he had a little, he wasn't, this is because this person wasn't overly proud. But he came to see Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati to discuss the points, which were points he wanted to help clarify. He came to see Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. And he asked him, whatever he addressed him as, Swamiji, whatever, I don't know. If you can, please, I'd like to discuss some points of scripture, which I'd like to have clarified. And Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, I'm a little busy right now. Maybe later we can discuss. But if you can stay, if you could help the Pujari with some devotional service. And as I said, the man wasn't proud. He witnessed an example. And he willingly went to help the Pujari. And said, well, first of all, he said, maybe you can go and ask the Pujari these questions. The vice chancellor said, no, these are very advanced questions. I don't think anyone but you will be able to understand the subject matter. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, maybe, but you go and talk to him first and see. So he went to the head Pujari, and the head Pujari said, well, okay, I'm a little bit busy now. We have a lot of service to do in the deity department. If you could help me with some of the cleaning behind the scenes, then maybe after that we can talk. The man was humble. He went ahead and cleaned some paraphernalia, whatever it was, cut some vegetables, whatever it was to be done. For quite some time, he was engaged in simple service in the mat. After some hours, he finished, service was finished. The Pujari came, well, thank you so much. Did you have any questions? He said, no, maybe if I could just see your Guru Maharaj before I leave, that's all. Okay. He went to see Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj again. And Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, so did you ask the Pujari your questions? He said, yes. And he said, did you get the answers? And he said, yes. Oh, he managed to answer your questions. What did you ask him? He said, no. Then how did you get the answers? And he said, just by that menial service, everything became clarified. And that's is the attitude. It's not even a menial service. We may do that for motivation too, or in a mode of nature which isn't so favorable, begrudgingly or just to show off or whatever it may be, just because I like it. He did it in a submissive mood, and Krishna gave him the answers within his heart. Ultimately, every answer comes from Krishna. How it comes is another thing. You have to realize that. So whether we're a student or whatever, humility is the only qualification that's required. There is none. Simply humility. I have no qualification. If we have been given by Krishna some aptitude for study or learning, it's not to be denied, but it must be in the mood of humility. We have to pray that we not become proud. When we look at the Bhagavatam, in some sections, Lord Brahma, for instance. Now, Lord Brahma is not an ordinary human being or an ordinary living entity. He's the greatest, you could say, on the material sense, greatest personality in the universe. He's also the head of our Sampradaya, and you can go on and on about his qualities. But even he is praying. When given the task of creativity, he is praying that he not become overwhelmed by pride in the course of his duty. Pride is the reason we're here. Well, the reason we're here is envy, and this word pride keeps us in this maturity. It's kind of like envy is also there, but it transforms into pride. We become so proud about whatever it is, being a demigod or being a demon or being whatever it is, a devotee. We're not devotees. We're trying to serve devotees. We're not learned. We're trying to take shelter. You could say the mercy of the Lord, the knowledge coming from the Lord. It's not my knowledge. It's not me. We have to learn how to utilize it. When we put that knowledge into proper practice, under direction, independently, there's a famous example Prabhupada gives of the apprentice veterinary vet. He wasn't a surgeon, but he was a vet. He was an apprentice to a vet. They are people who look after animals, health of animals. So he was an apprentice, so the vet was showing him various ways to, help animals and so on when they're in sick conditions. And one time there was this horse, and the horse had a big lump in its throat, a big lump. It got something stuck. The horse had swallowed some lemon or something. And it was stuck in its throat. And the poor thing was gagging and could hardly breathe. So the vet took a little hammer and slowly tap, tap, quite gently, tap, 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 boom. And eventually the lemon flew out of its mouth. So the apprentice thought, that's so easy. What is that? That's so easy. So anyway, after some time, he was walking somewhere else. The apprentice was going somewhere else. And he saw a man there. He had to go to a big lump in his throat. And he thought, oh, it can help you. Just close your eyes, sit still. He took a hammer and started whacking him under this thing and burst some major blood vessels, and the poor fellow gasped to death, killed him on the spot. Couldn't work it out. It worked with the horse. It didn't work with the man. Imitation. You have to know how to apply knowledge. Secret is learning how to apply it, not knowledge itself. More important than knowledge is knowing how to apply it in a way which is effective, in a way which pleases Krishna, in a way which helps others. We don't just bang knowledge into people. Because what applies to one may not apply to another. It's learning how to apply the Shastra, the truth, time, place, and circumstance. That's why you see sometimes acharyas, in their immature state, we see contradictions, we see confusions. But Prabhupada said that over there, and he said the opposite over there. What do I make of this? And we fight with each other over it. Well, the situation over there was a different time, place, and circumstance to what it is over there. There was no temple there. There were just new people smoking dope. And over here, you're supposed to be a Brahmin. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you according to how you're going to advance to the next stage, not the person who's still smoking marijuana. You don't even talk about it. You just chant Hare Krishna and take as much prasad as you can when the time is right. Even Jesus used the same. When he was asked, is that all? You know, basically speaking, he was just giving moral principles. The Bible is basically moral principles. He's given so many moral principles. Is there any more? He said, there are so many more things to teach you, but you can't even follow what I'm giving you now. How can I teach you any more? You can't even follow what I'm asking you to do now. That was Jesus's answer. So much more to teach. Same thing, when you're ready, Krishna arranges it. So it's a matter of humility. It's a matter of learning from others how to apply that knowledge properly, not just utilizing it because we've got those. Ashvatthama had the tools, but he didn't know how to use them properly. Where we see the disastrous effects in Bhagavatam of his misuse of knowledge. Misuse, he became proud of his knowledge. Easily done. Apprentice, proud of his knowledge. So we have to be very careful. Menial servant, always. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, when his Guru Maharaj passed away, Gokishore Das Babaji, he was lamenting. And lamenting for the lack of association. He said, who will correct me now? Who will chastise me now? To whom do I go to have corrections now? He was also worried, proud or something. Being willing to take chastisement is not an easy one. But this humility is the real essence. No matter what we're doing, even if you're just doing a little service, you can become proud. You can just be the pot washer. You can be really proud. Why no one else is doing this? Why it's always me? Why do I always have to do everything? One type of pride. Another one is, I'm the best of the pot washers. See how good I'm cleaning these pots. Right? Tell me. I say, yeah, you probably were doing so well. You're doing great. Thank you. Different types of pride manifest. We see in the case of King Prataparuta, how he's the king of Orissa and many other places. But when he's sweeping the floor in front of Jagannath, he's not thinking, look at me. How good am I sweeping the floor today? I am sure everybody will think I'm the most humble person in the world. He's not thinking like that. He thinks himself the most lowly creature who's been so somehow or another blessed with this opportunity to serve, to render this menial service. It's symptomatic when we're asked to do a service and we kind of try to put our whatever is learning in between the service and ourselves, or between us and Krishna. Symptomatic, our attitude is a little bit, needs a bit of refining, needs a bit of work on it. You have to have common sense, but I mean, if there's sort of like an immediate no, who do you think you are to ask me to do this? Then we better we don't have any learning at all. Better to be, a road sweeper practically. It's missing the point altogether. The purpose of there is no scholarly studies in the spiritual realm. Everyone is just eternally thinking how to render service for Krishna. There's no break, none. More and more and more. We exist simply to nothing else other than to serve Krishna's senses. What are the gopis doing? Cleaning, making preparations for Krishna, finding ways to bring pleasure to Krishna, making nice garlands and forest groves for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna, singing just what Krishna wants to hear, not what I want to hear, what Krishna wants to hear. Musical instruments that Krishna likes to hear. Dancing the way Krishna likes you to dance. Speaking ways that just please Krishna's heart. Everything's like that. Even if there is shastric statements, Madam Mongol may come along with some nice, shastric statements, but it just brings pleasure to the Lord, and they have a laugh if it's some kind of whatever. it seems inappropriate to the situation or whatever it may be, then everyone laughs. It just brings pleasure to everyone. There's no question of me in the center, it's Krishna in the center. So again, reminding ourselves always, learning everything, all knowledge is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. That's all. To glorify Krishna. When we speak anything from Shastra, it should be to glorify Krishna, not to establish our point, not to show I'm a learned person, not to defeat somebody, just to glorify Krishna. That's the purpose. Thank you. We have 10 questions now. I knew there will be a few. Go to the beginning. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Please, could you explain to us where is the limit of sense gratification only to sustain our, oh, that's a good one, and not more, and where is the tendency to explode? For example, after divorce, oh dear, and fall to complete gratification, how to find the right balance. This is ongoing, we could say, an ongoing challenge in life, in our modern context, or modern environment that we live in. It's very difficult. Association of devotees, good association. I mean, you can go back to beginnings every way here. Taking good advice. Where are the limits? The limits may be a little bit further this way in the beginning, gradually come to a balance. It's natural. You have to see, you can't just suddenly, boom, come to the middle point. And each and every person is different. So what is the balance for one is not the balance for the other. You can't impose your balance on someone else. He may be more Brahminical, he may be more Vaishya, whatever it may be, somebody more like a Shudrik, whatever. So the balances may be very different for different people. But how to come to that? That's the whole Vedic society is based on that in our movement. And again, you can't expect perfection because everyone's in some degree in the same boat. No one's transcendentally, or maybe some are, I don't know, but most people are not transcendental to the Varnashram system. And we're still affected by identification, we're still affected by illusion ourselves, or being improperly engaged. When a person is properly engaged, both in Varna and Ashram, then it becomes much easier to know where the balance lies. In our modern society, there's a very complication. Our social media and everything makes even more complications, education and so on. Add to that because they create all kinds of unnecessary alternatives, all kinds of unnecessary so-called necessities. People become very confused. We're brought up in a society where we think we need this, we think we need that. Let's say our necessities are different. From day one, we have this situation which we're faced with. And it takes quite some time for the transformation to take place. That is why Srila Prabhupada wanted that we try to introduce Varna Ashram in our society. When it comes to marriage, most of the breakdowns in marriage is incompatibility, not knowing the expectations of each other in the beginning, not taking good advice before, during, and all stages, and hopefully not after, but even after. Good advice, what do I do now? How do we deal with this? How do we grow? Is this a rightful situation? It's sometimes lacking. There's a great need for that. In Vedic society or in human society, that was always the parents. But nowadays, it's not usually the parents. We have to see elsewhere. There's some advice there. So association is, if you're coming to the point of exploding, which I hope you're not, but if one is, then we have to take shelter of good association as much as we can. Now that means, it doesn't mean we go to this like, Guru Maharaj, blah, blah, blah. It means we find some persons who are, life is they're more expert in these areas of life, be it occupational activity, be it ashram situation, in terms of grihastha, which is predominantly the main ashram, what to do. My family situation is such and such. We need to go to somebody. I mean, we're usually not transcendental. We're usually not so surrendered to Krishna. We go to somebody else who will help us at least to deal with it in the emotional or the physical way as best we can, or try to see how we can improve the situation, or to understand, is this a good thing to do? Planning. Take advice. Tradition, the Brahmins, even they would also discuss, or to speak of kings who would take advice from Brahmins on certain issues, which were, let's say, rather severe incidences. So taking shelter or taking advice from others is learning how to make decisions in life. And taking a little bit of guidance. But traditionally, people learn from their family. Now we don't. We learn from social media, and we get confused about who am I and what I should do. Totally confused, practically speaking. Not taking even everyone's confused. The parents also we're all confused. Kali Yuga is a confusing age, so it's full of faults. You can't expect there won't be confusion, but as much as possible, take shelter of association. Don't take shelter of our disturbed minds, and of course of Krishna, and like that. And what can we say? Next one. And also in terms of, in this case, the balance. It's a good idea to take advice in regarding to balance. What is good for me? There is a general perception in masses that most wars between civilizations are due to religion. That every religion is trying to protect their own religious principles. As a devotee, how should we comprehend this view? Religion, well, again, when we have this Bhagavatam starts party, Dharma Kotava Prochitatra, Paramo Nimatsaranam Satam. But Bhagavatam rejects cheating religions. That means religions which see themselves as all in all. Krishna consciousness isn't a material religion, it's the religion of our eternal constitution. That's available to everyone. And a person who's actually Krishna conscious can see the value of other, when we talk of other religions, ultimately there's only one religion. But in this world, that one religion, because of many different reasons, karmas, time and circumstances, different individuals, etc., manifests in so many different forms, appropriate for different time, place, and circumstance. But those reflections of pure religion are temporary. But if the temporary religion considers itself the eternal religion, be it Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, whatever it may be called, considers that all in all, and that's it, full stop, then you have a problem. The leaders have to see beyond that. They have to see beyond it. But if they don't, then you do get this kind of, we want to have friendly relationships, but on my terms basis, more or less. We accept your religion, but we don't accept your God. My God's the only God. We accept you, we don't accept your way you do. It's a contradiction. Therefore, you get this quarreling. If the religion is based on economic development, you get the problem. If it's not based on pure devotional service, you're always going to get a problem. Even religions, although they're not, generally speaking, of this world, if they're not based on that ultimate goal, ultimate principle, then more and more you'll get problems. And if there's no, the leadership is the secret here. If the leaders are focused, if the leaders are guiding, then there's every chance that, that the friction which we see, especially in this age, doesn't need to take place. If the leaders themselves are, say, also subject to this narrow-mindedness or this short-sightedness or this lack of understanding, are also victims of sense gratification, which is often the case, you have a problem. You have a real problem. If they're still identifying with the body, you have a real problem. I'm the leader of one of the biggest religions in the world. I was giving a talk somewhere one time, and somebody said, "Oh, I just watched something on television. And the leader of this religion was so humble, so nice. He was in some place where there was, some problem had taken place. And they were being asked, why is this happening? He said, this is not the work of the Lord. I cannot say why this happened. That was his answer. And they're saying, it's so humble. It's not humble at all. It's ignorant. Leader of religion should know the answer, should know why this is happening. But if we deny the truth, if we deny surrender, if we deny the will of God, ultimately, we're having difficulty there. You can't expect anyone else to have anything other than that. Especially when we think this mundane perspective of religion, my religion is the only way, and so on and so forth. We're definitely going to have problems. We're like kids fighting over toy soldiers, or over train sets, or over mobile phones nowadays, or whatever they fight over. People fighting over football matches, people fighting over political issues, fighting over races, fighting over genders, fighting over sense gratification. It's just another form of sense gratification. That's all my religion provides my material necessities. It's the best. That's not at all the purpose of religion. In the beginning, it may be regulated, but they don't even want regulated sense grat anymore. Even that's becoming less and less and less. So as long as, if it's guided by material principles, you're going to have more and more and more problems. And that's why it's so important. Prabhupada didn't have any intention of changing people's religions. He wanted people to follow them. If we don't follow them, what can we expect? Krishna will be pleased? No way. God will not be pleased. Many people swear on my name, but I do not know them, Prabhupada said. Jesus said it. Yeah? Many people call on my name, but I do not know them. Because they're not following. Not following our own interpretation, our own sense enjoyment, etc. It's a very unfortunate situation. This label is placed on religions. It's especially by atheists, or even many people become atheists because of this. And we can understand why. Religion is supposed to achieve its purpose also. There has to be some. We have the same problem in ISKCON, in that sense. I don't say the same problem, at least I hope not, of condemnation. We're not meant to do that. We're meant to encourage others in properly following their path, if that's what's suitable for them right now. But in our own terms of not actually following, therefore there's not so effective. The leadership is following and not following, then it won't be so. Then there'll be all kinds of, duplicity or duality there. There was a general perception on that too. Efforts were made to cultivate a family into devotional service. They started reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, started with few japs. A few months later, this conventional Brahmin family has reverted back to meat eating and no japas. How to convince them again to look at the ultimate goal of human life? Okay, well, how to convince anyone, your family or anyone's family, it's the same process. We shouldn't be so much attached to our physical family that we think we're so great that we can change their minds. We don't own them. We have the opportunity to serve them. Krishna places them in our lives to learn lessons and to serve them. It's not that they're our property, we're so attached, right? And then we get so embarrassed, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We get ashamed that we failed or whatever it is. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It happened to many. Even Prabhupada had a difficult time. Even Advaita Acharya wasn't able to convince his own sons to take up pure devotional service. I don't think we're so great. It doesn't happen sometimes. Even Prabhupada's own family, he couldn't even convince his own wife to take up pure devotional service. Everything has its part to play, and it's not necessarily the way we want it. It's a lesson to learn that we're not the controller. It's a lesson. We may have some shortcomings, and that's why these things happen. Also, in our case, in case we're pure devotee, it may be to show lessons and learning. Understand this can happen to anyone, not to be so attached to thinking I can. Lord Chaitanya gave up his family in order for the service of the whole world. And we have greater services to do. Of course, we try everything we can, but we shouldn't be so attached to these things. And this is the greatest bondage in the world, is family attachment. It's naturally going to be there. We have a duty to perform. but not to the point that we abandon our devotional service or, spend all of our time on it. It's not the goal of life. We do our best. We do our best. And if somebody doesn't want to listen, what can you do? Usually in these cases, the more you try to force it, the less it'll happen. The best thing you can usually do is be a good example yourself. Try to become serious and become a good example. Can't force others. Even Prabhupada, when he was staying with Sally Agarwal and Gopal Agarwal, who were eating meat, he was smoking cigarettes. probably a few other things as well. Prabhupada said nothing of it. He just carried on. He didn't try to convert them. He just carried on. Learning how to encourage them instead of trying to, think I can change them. We can't change anyone. We can't change a thing. We can only look at how I can change my own heart and soul. It's your heart that needs to be changed in that sense. Or my heart. You have to look at your own heart. What is it? Not that this person, that person, how I can do it. That's a nice sentiment. But first we have to look at our own heart, see what is it. If you keep trying to do the same thing, it doesn't work. Even Einstein said it's madness. If it's not working, you keep thinking, I just keep doing it, you're mad. Some adjustment has to be there. Adjustment. I remember with my parents, when I first became a full-time member of the temple, I used to try to preach to them. It didn't get anywhere. It just made the relationship more and more strained. And then I stopped preaching. I just started to thank them and apologize for any harm I'd ever done to them and thank them for all the kindness that they showed to me. I started giving them gifts and started to not even try to even preach to them at all. And the whole relationship changed. They even gave me money sometimes or gifts and things like that as well in return. Not that I wanted it, but they did. And they were, they didn't agree, but the relationship became friendly and respectful. So it's our way we think, maturity, I suppose. We learn to mature in relationships with all kinds of people. Deal with people from where they're at, not where we're at. How they see it, not how we see it. Learning how to see things from another person's perspective, even if they're on a mundane platform. There's no point trying to ram things down our throat that they're just going to vomit back. You have to learn what can be digested, how to, if you want to help them, that is, what they can digest. What can they digest? Science. Again, take advice from those who are expert. We hear that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave topmost love of Godhead, and we get a position as a gopi. Oh, and also we hear that we were created by Sri Krishna to reciprocate in a particular mood, and we already have a particular body as a gopi, a gopa, or as a parent. So what is true? One of those proverbial questions. Is my relationship with Krishna constitutionally already set? And no matter what anyone says, that's it? Or can we become gopis, even though I think my constitutional position is a gopa or something else, a cow or whatever? Well, this is a big question which involves many other subject matters. And it's pretty much inconceivable to a conditioned soul to be able to really pinpoint, and I'm nothing more than the lowest of the conditioned souls in one sense. But Prabhupada did say, although our position constitutionally is generally set, it can change. How you work that one out. Nothing is impossible by Krishna's arrangement. Everything in the spiritual realm is based on desire. It's not based upon, mechanics. It's based on desire. We see even devotees who are associated with Lord Chaitanya. Some of them, you don't see Vyankatapata, for instance, who Lord Chaitanya had the highest loving relationship with him in terms of where Vyankatapata was at. He spent months staying with him, but he was a determined worshipper of Lakshmi Narayan. He couldn't budge. They would argue in a loving way, debate, whatever you want to call it, in a loving way. And he's like, no, but my worshipful Lord is Lakshmi Narayan. So we would assume that he is an eternally constitutional servant of Lakshmi Narayan. Lord Chaitanya confirmed that with Rupa Goswami's younger brother, Bala, that he was an eternal servant of Lord Ramchandra, despite the fact that he had such association. Well, to speak of Murari Gupta, one of the most famous followers of Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya was trying to get him to worship Radha Krishna, and he was trying to follow Lord Chaitanya, but he decided, I'm going to give up my life. I can't do this. I'm going to commit suicide. I can't do this. And Lord Chaitanya knew he was going to, he planned to commit suicide. He came in and stopped him. He said, I'm just testing your chastity. Now I understand. Not understand, he understood all along. Now it should be known that you are the eternal servant of Lord Ram. You are none other than Hanuman in his case. But you may find that. Now the other side of it, Jiva. Now that's another topic altogether, which we're not going to go into, but then the whole subject matter of Jiva's constitution and Jiva's being in this world, etc., would come into this. What is the constitution of Tatastha Shakti, etc., etc., comes in, but we're not going to go down there because it opens up a can of worms, as they say, with so many different angles of understanding or of even some people come to conclusions. These things are inconceivable to touch. They're chincha, conditioned souls practically. You accept or you don't. Can't conceive it because we're not on that level of realization. But nothing is impossible by the will of the Lord. The main thing is we do understand one thing. Now, you don't find out, as far as I know, any statement where it says, you know, we hear Jive Shrubhai Nichara Krishna Dasa. The eternal nature of the soul is servant of Krishna. We don't hear the eternal nature of the soul is Krishna Gopi or something, Krishna Saka. Krishna Saki, Krishna Saka. We don't hear. We hear Krishna Das. Right now, we're not acting in that constitutional position. We're acting very differently. We're our own servants. So these things will become realized as one progresses. How to come to Krishna Das. From Krishna Das, everything comes. Krishna Das means we've come to the position at least where our devotional service is nishta, beyond anartha, beyond material affection, beyond material attachment, beyond the reactions, or let's say beyond being controlled by the reactions, both gross and subtle. We've come to the nishta stage of devotional service, when our practice of bhakti is steady. We are not on the realized platform of being Krishna Das, maybe, but you're fixed in the conception of the activity of Krishna Das without any disturbance. One's devotional service is now solid, not up and down, and not motivated by material purposes. One's steady. In that stage, one's natural attraction, now this is described, I can't remember which scriptures, described in Shastra, that at that stage, and certainly our acharyas have stated it themselves, that at that stage, one's natural attraction for Krishna may start to develop. And one's attraction for associating with persons in that particular relationship with Krishna starts to develop. One wants to hear particular aspects of devotional service, or one's very inclined in that direction to associate with persons who are inclined in that direction. But that's when so the main thing you have to concentrate now is not necessarily worrying about that. That will come in its own course, is to come to the point of actually being a servant of a servant. Coming, not even a devotee. Baba said, don't think you're a devotee. We're trying to become servants of devotees. We're not qualified to be called a devotee. We're trying to serve the devotees. This is Prabhupada's telling us this. So, so I would suggest you just try to concentrate. Don't worry too much about that right now. But just understand, okay, whatever you say, nothing is impossible. Krishna can do anything he likes. It's based on loving reciprocation, and it's nothing that can be forced. And if you do develop an attraction to serve Krishna in different ways, it may be possible. That could happen. But generally, Prabhupada said it doesn't. Next one. Alibo and Longos, all the devotees there. Missing you all. It's in Philippines. Wonderful devotees there. Could you please share? Oh, okay. I'll try to put that on. I don't know if I can do it today. And maybe Rasikananda, you can send it out to the group. The details to send donations, as I've been mentioning, for our beloved devotees in Ukraine or wherever they are now. And we wish for all the people everywhere, but in Ukraine, of course, it appears to be a very severe situation. We have many devotees in Mayapur, which I'm here, I don't know, but I hear is the most, let's say, threatened place or the most difficult place right now. I don't know, that's what I've heard. And we have many devotees there, that I know. So I don't know if they're still there, or if they left the city or what, but as far as I know, they're still there. So certainly, whatever we can do to serve the Vaishnavas will benefit everyone else too. It's watering the root of a tree. We wish for everyone. But by serving the Vaishnavas, you're serving Krishna's lotus feet. And then Krishna may be very satisfied. Watering the root of a tree will benefit all. So if anyone wants to send, I think that's what they're asking. Maybe if you can accommodate devotees, honestly speaking, if you're in a position to do so, that's another area which most of Europe is trying to do right now. And also if you can send funds, Rasikananda Prabhu, for my newsletter, I sent it out on the newsletter. It should have been received by most devotees, not all. You can please post it or do something like that. Thank you to remind me. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you. What is the difference between material desire and sense gratification? Well, material desire leads to sense gratification. It's a subtle form of sense gratification. And it usually leads to a gross form. Gross form is indulgence in trying to enjoy the objects of the senses. The desire or material desire is on the subtle platform. So same thing. But the difference in Kali Yuga is there, that is described that in Kali Yuga, that when we actually act karma, you get reaction. By thinking about something, you don't get a direct reaction like as you do when you act in Kali Yuga. In other ages, even the thought has a prominent reaction. But what it does, if we're thinking about material desires, it colors our consciousness, pollutes our consciousness, and naturally, the inclination is it will in time lead to action. So it's very polluting. And this inclination, it will lead. In of itself, it's not considered or taken on the same level of, say, a sin or a pious activity. They're both material, karmic thing. But it can lead to material activity, and it will also pollute our consciousness. And one's, let's say, focus on Krishna will naturally be clouded. One's conviction towards devotional service will be clouded. So that's a difference between the two. One is subtle, one is gross. Subtle leads to gross. So we have to try to change the subtle desires, the subtle thoughts. So we don't take that, both two things, clouding our consciousness and the risk of indulging in mundane activity as a follow-up to cultivating material desire. Material desires are very common. We all have them. They're, obviously not wanted. They're unwanted. They're anarthas. When we say material desires, then we don't mean like desires to necessarily, and there may be other ways of looking at it. One may have a desire to change, to get some knowledge to serve Krishna. That may be good. I'm not saying it is, but it might be. One may desire to collect some money to serve Krishna. That may be good. It's going to be devotional services described by Kapila Deva in 3 different modes of nature. So then you have, it's not just one, then you have different, many divisions of what type of devotional service this is, even though we're saying, I want to do it for Krishna. Depends on the attitude, the motivation, the reaction when we do it, etc. Everything determines the degree of that being devotional service and in which mode that service is being rendered. We want to come to the transcendental plane of devotional service. But in the meantime, there will be all different layers, there are all different types of devotional service being rendered, mixed, it's called mixed. Mishra, Bhakti Mishra, Karma Mishra, mixed devotional service, mixed with karma. Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, different types of mixtures are there, overlapping, coating the devotion. But again, that's the whole process of gradually coming to the Ahuitikiya Pratiyata, or to the Anyabilasata Shunyam Jnana Karmadinavatam, to the pure stage, the uncovered stage, where devotional service is no longer covered. But the most it's mixed right now. It's not one or the other, it's mixed. A bit of this, a bit of that covered. Devotional service covered with material desire, covered with desire to feel comfortable in this world or make arrangements for my own positioning, etc., etc. Covered by many different types of material or knowledgeable factors. So devotional service has to become uncovered. Anyavilasata Shunyam Jnana Karmadya. Anavritam means uncovered, not covered by. This takes time. By associating with somebody who is a pure devotee of the Lord, then those dirty things in our heart which are covering our conscience can be removed. That's the teaching of Bhagavatam. The whole process of Bhagavatam is to become uncovered. We are free of these various anarthas, etc. Okay, that's it. Hare Krishna to all. Thank you also, Soumya. Nice to see you again. Pray that you're happy, you're peacefully executing your devotional service there. Bonnie, London. Okay, thank you all so much. We'll have a little kirtan and wish you a ecstatic new year. Please remain prayerful for everyone, for yourselves also, and especially in the crisis situation in Ukraine, for the devotees and the people there in Ukraine. And elsewhere, in Russia, the devotees are suffering like anything in Russia. I feel so sad. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Who's singing? I forgot. All together.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Dear Tulsi, I can see you there. I just waiting for the day to be with you again. I think of you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Please forgive me for all my offenses. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, go Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Haribo, 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 Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Hey Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Bo.
हरि बोल दंडवत प्रणाम जय